Hello, friends, colleagues, clients, and trespassers. Welcome to Coach2Coach, the show where the world of coaching opens up to you, our listeners. I'm Laurie Schloff, Executive Communication Coach over too many decades. And I'm here with my semi-regular co-host, the talented presence coach, and my favorite and only child, Hava Horowitz. Coach2Coach.
Hi.
Who inform, teach, entertain, provoke, amuse, and invite you to engage, all in a 15-minute time period. We coaches can do it all. Each Coach2Coach features a coach supreme, someone who's changing the world, one coachee at a time. And today, our guest is my favorite Canadian coach, Andy Churchill.
Go Canada! Happy Thanksgiving! We don't put it so close to Christmas that the two get confused.
Oh, that you do it right. Andy is the president of Present Better, and he's famous for his colorful coaching creativity in the sedate world, I'm saying that, not you, Andy, of academia. Now, many people think of coaching as a serious business, and yes, career and communication growth and having goals are no nonsense. Yes. Yet, I have found that the best coaches know that a dose of humor, mirth, and diversion deepen the coaching connection and resolve. So, everybody, let's get started. I'm going to ask Andy, and Hava, feel free to chime in. Andy, do you think fun has an important role in coaching, and what purpose does it serve for the coach and the coachees?
Yes.
Oh. Like drunk guy.
Absolutely. Especially you know this, Laurie, better than anyone, especially in the public speaking space, there's a lot of anxiety. There's some imposter syndrome. There's a lot of wondering if we're good enough and being worried about the space and our performance within it. And, being able to inject a little bit of humor into a space that is as serious and as heavy as it is really important.
I agree. Hava, what about you? You do some very interesting kinds of things. And it seems to me like your clients always seem to be having a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I often get people a little bit resistant to the idea of having fun or playing around. In costume, a certain costume to the work, a tightly buttoned up suit jacket, and there's not a lot of room to breathe, and the tie is really tight. And loosening the costume can feel a little bit unfamiliar, feel a little strange to be able to have more breathing room. But I completely agree with Andy that play and fun is essential for us to really explore new parts of ourselves and ask ourselves questions that we don't typically ask in the, suit jacket buttoned up to the top.
You make me take my clothes off. Because, of course, I did my research. So humor adds to the bonding, provides a break, adds to memory, motivation, and flexibility. And this is my favorite. It increases levels of dopamine and endorphins. That's how I'm feeling with you guys. And I remember my first exposure to humor and learning was in junior high school. My geometry teacher made us get up and demonstrate with our bodies the transitive property. Can you all sort of picture that? This is to that, this is to that with our bodies and stuff. Okay, so now let's get serious about fun. So, Andy, what are a couple of things that you like to do when you're coaching that add some mirth and joy? And maybe I am stereotyping researchers and academics. I don't know if they are a more challenging bunch.
Well, they certainly have that reputation, right? And I think it's It's interesting how we're talking about the uniform, right? And I think the same thing happens when you step on stage. Even regardless of what you're wearing, there's a constriction, right? And one of the things that I try and do is like just cut it loose. Cut it loose. So I try and demonstrate that space a little bit. You know, instead of using PowerPoint, sometimes I'll use props. I'll do everything from, you know, here's usually what happens with a slide deck is you put a slide up there and then you kind of look at it and then you talk about it for a little while and you look at it to try and remember what you're saying. And then you crumple it up and you throw it away and then you go on to the next slide, right? And then you crumple that one up and you throw it away. There's no connective tissue. So it's like you can do this in PowerPoint. In fact, I have a PowerPoint that uses the crumple feature.
No, you're joking, right?
No, I'm not. There's a crumple in PowerPoint for transition. There's also a shatter. So you can take your PowerPoint slide and you can make it break into other pieces and drift down.
You just got like 2,000 new followers with this.
I'll tell you my favorite one, though. My favorite one is, this is your journal article, because I work with researchers, right? Background, methodology, results, discussion. This is your audience's brain. And what you try and do when you present is just take your journal article and bring it to your audience. I love it. You never get to the end because you run out of time. So there's always a little you're going to get to say it. It's no longer organized, and half an hour later, and the next day,
You got to do
your audience
that at the end of
your audience doesn't remember anything.
so,
They definitely
tell the
remember
story.
that, though, Andy. They definitely remember
Tell the
that.
story.
okay, good. All right, let's get to that. So, Hava, can you top that? No, maybe you can't top it, but what are a few things you do?
Well, I have a question for Andy because, you know, I'm with folks, a lot of whom are doctors, academics, and in those formats, in those conferences, in those keynote presentations, they typically have a really structured format that they're used to in those academic or medical journal kinds of settings. And one time I was working with a client who was a doctor presenting at a professional conference, and I was suggesting that perhaps she traverse the stage. Wow, what a groundbreaking suggestion. And he said, there is no way I'm moving from that lecture. It's just not done here. And so I'm curious for you, how do you encourage people who are in these very traditional normative presentation environments to break free of that?
Well, I do a lot of event coaching, and when I do event coaching, I either just get rid of the lectern so it doesn't exist, or I put it way off to the side. And I tell people that you can sit there, but you're going to be a long way away from center stage because the lectern is not going to be center stage.
Well, following up on that, so Andy, like, do people make a breakthrough where you sort of see a real change in them?
Absolutely. And you work with the space you have. I talk a lot about what are the guardrails, right? And sometimes the guardrails are that you have to use the podium.
Right.
Like I have one group that I coach, and it's in a 500-seat formal auditorium with 2 screens and a fixed podium in the middle.
Right.
And there's no way you can do anything but present with 2 screens and a fixed podium, which is, by the way, my least favorite way to present. Mm-hmm. I hate having 2 screens. And I hate having a fixed podium with a fixed mic because those guardrails are so narrow. But even in that situation, what can you do?
Right.
Because what most people do is they take their, sorry, I'm back in the prop world. I have my little portable lectern. So they take their lectern, right, and they stand behind it and put their hands on it. I say, well, why don't you just stand against it and bring your hands forward a little bit? Like you can stand in a lectern like this, or you could stand a little lectern like this.
Right. Right.
So that person who's not allowed to move on the stage is allowed to move on the lectern. And even on Zoom, like I do a lot of this, right?
Right.
Like if you want to give people the idea about how to do something differently, you have to do it differently. And have some fun and smile, and people laugh because they're like, "Oh yeah, your hands are moving a lot," and I'm like, "Yeah, they are, but I'm not boring."
That's right. And
you're not going to go to sleep listening to me. You're not going to check your email because you're afraid you're going to miss something.
Yeah.
What's he going to do next?
Yeah.
I just broke a pot.
I'm extracting something here. So novelty and surprise. Novelty and surprise make a difference. But I'm also getting the feeling, because I'm even feeling it, that when we're doing something fun, maybe even silly, we just feel more relaxed. Simple as that.
Our brains on data. I mean, you both know this. Our brains on data, there are two areas that are firing. Our brains on story, our brains on dopamine, our brains when we're engaged, your entire brain is firing. And when you only have the analytic part of your brain or the logic part of your brain firing, you're literally firing on two cylinders. And when you have emotion and you have feeling and you have things like surprise, you're suddenly firing on 22 cylinders. Which would you rather have your audience firing on, 2 or 22? It's really kind of that simple.
Right. And I think, Andy, you're modeling for us, even in this very moment, around how we can literally shatter expectations around how to show up in certain environments. I mean,
I literally just shattered a plant. Like when I went over, I'm looking at, it's okay. It's an orchid. It's got the inside pot, but the outside pot shattered. But it's good. That's what we need to do. We need to break out of the bottle.
That's right. And it's like we're in this LinkedIn Live right now, and you breaking that plant in the background, like in some way allowed me to feel a little bit more like myself. And I can break expectations and I can feel more free. And so perhaps it's up to us as facilitators and coaches to do that modeling, like you said.
Right. This is just so silly and inspiring. But can I be a little analytical? Just because I know some of the listeners
absolutely
a list. So some funny things, obviously a light story, a dumb pun, like they don't call it a boardroom for nothing. Self-deprecation. So I always say my last name is Schloff, but means sleep in German, but don't live up to my name. I know it's uproarious. It's uproarious. Come on. And then we said novelty or surprise. So a moment I remember with a coach I had is the electricity wasn't working, and we had a coaching session by candlelight.
Really?
Surprise. Yes.
That's very sweet and romantic.
Thank you. No,
so things that are different, right? Those things that are different. One of the reasons I have a whiteboard behind me is because I use it I use it online. My camera will refocus to the whiteboard. I can stand up. I can draw on the whiteboard. I'm terrible at drawing. I have horrible handwriting, but no one cares. No one remembers, oh, you're the guy with the bad handwriting.
Yeah.
They just remember, oh, you're the guy who uses a chalkboard still.
Yeah, whiteboard, but that's okay.
Not in a lot of our classrooms at McGill. A lot of our classrooms still have chalkboard, and I go and I come home And my daughter's like, Dada, you're covered in chalk again. Can I take her color? She has those, when you were little, right? You remember this. You have the colored chalk for the boardwalk.
Right.
And they're like 20 different colors and it's big, fat. I take those. I put them in my backpack whenever I leave.
I love
Because I never know when I'm going to walk into a room with a chalkboard and I pull out my daughter's chalk. And I have 17 different colors and some of them are short and stubby and some of them are still big and long. And it's just, it's connection, right? Oh, I'm using my daughter's chalk and everybody lights up.
Yeah.
Because we're real. We're human beings. I don't go to like Staples and get a fresh, sorry, I almost said Bureau and Grow, but you're not in Canada. I always go to Staples and get like a fresh, clean one so I can walk into the boardroom. But I just grab them from the pile by the door and take them with me.
Super. Time does go fast when you're having fun, but we said we'd keep it pretty short. So, any words of advice to keep the merriment going, for coaches who are planning, or maybe someone can tell their coach how to make things more fun. Hava, do you have a suggestion? Or a quote?
It was back to the basics of being alive, but music. I mean, when you are starting a facility, for me, I just did a job at the military. Started the day playing Need You Tonight, as people were walking in the door, and they sort of had this look of like, where am I? Am I even at work when that song came on? And it's just like you're saying, Andy, of like, what are these little bits of magic that we can inject to this, create an altered space where people can really learn? And music, I found to be a really, really good way to do that.
I love that. I love that.
Andy, you were the funnest guest. Yeah. You're our first guy guest. How about that?
There you go.
No,
you should have more fun. You need more fun guys in your life, apparently.
You're absolutely right. And any words to the wise coaches or clients out there?
So one of the things I tell people is you don't need to be, people get nervous about pushing back on the boundaries, right? And they're going to a conference or they're going to whatever their event is. And I'm like, listen, you don't need to be the most different person at the event. But don't be the most similar.
Goodness, I like that. So I have a quote: a team that laughs together lasts together. And how
I like that.
Something about friendship that if you have.
Yeah, a recent study came out that was looking at the different variables that determine employee retention. And it's not having the best relationship with your boss. It's not having a salary increase year after year. The number one variable that determines employee retention is having a friend at work.
We have some laughs with.
Someone you can enjoy being at work with, have laughs with, have fun with, confide in, all of these things.
Yes.
That is the number one factor that determines.
I've been there. I know it. Yeah. Anyway, well, this was great. Time just really flew. So it's very clear that feeling and acting funny really makes for a better coaching experience. Don't you all think? So thanks everyone for being here, and see you next time on Coach2Coach. Keep on coaching. Thank you, Andy Churchill.
Thank you, Andy.
Pleasure.